Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring you today's most pressing issues from across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. North Korea confirmed a successful test firing of a new intermediate-range ballistic missile on Tuesday, marking the regime's first such provocation this year. The North State media says the missile, equipped with a hypersonic warhead, traveled approximately 1,500 kilometers at speeds of up to 12 times the speed of sound. It says the advanced missile system will provide a reliable deterrent against rivals in the Pacific region. The missile test comes at a time of significant political instability in neighboring South Korea, following President Yoon Suk Yeol's imposition of martial law and his subsequent impeachment by the National Assembly. It also comes just 2 weeks ahead of the official inauguration of the second Donald Trump administration in the U.S. So for a closer look into the issue, we are joined by our go-to North Korea expert, Dr. Kim Mok-yeon, Senior Research Fellow at the Institute for National Security Strategy. Welcome, Dr. Go.
Thanks for having me.
And also joining us is Mark Barry, Associate Editor Emeritus at the International Journal on World Peace. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, happy to be with you, and Happy New Year to you both.
Happy New Year. Now, let's start with Dr. Barry. So first, the launch came on the same day of the foreign ministerial meeting that was held between Seoul and Washington. How would you read into the timing of North Korea's latest provocation, and what kind of message do you think the regime is trying to convey?
I don't think it's trying to convey a message as much as it's trying to adhere to a scientific timetable, as one of your guests on your morning show said the other day. It's doing what testing is necessary, but they surely took into account the timing of Secretary Blinken's final South Korean visit. And also, let's keep in mind that today is reportedly Kim Jong-un's birthday. Whether he's 41, 42, apparently January 8th is the date that he was born. And I think a test had to occur before such an important day, and it would be that much more meaningful if it was a success. However, North Korea does predictably exaggerate, and even if it doesn't quite meet the parameters that it had announced, it may be good enough for internal North Korean purposes, but I think for public purposes, they like to exclaim that it achieved far more than it may have actually achieved.
Right, so it's more of a domestic interest, the timing of which. So let's get into the details of the latest missile. Dr. Go, what is a hypersonic missile in the first place, and how is it different from conventional ballistic missiles that we've been seeing in the past?
Well, there are many different types of, there are two major types of hypersonic missiles. In this particular case, we are talking about the hypersonic glide vehicle. So what it means is essentially the missile side is in fact borrowed from a conventional ballistic missile component. So if you check out the footage provided by the North Koreans themselves, the missile is launched just like any other ballistic missile. But what differentiates this particular weapon system from a conventional, quote-unquote, conventional ballistic missile is the end stage. The topmost, the warhead side of the missile is clearly looks different from other ballistic missiles. You can see that it has a triangular shape, it has some wing. So this is the glide component of the hypersonic missile. So what it means is that the terminal stage of the missile, when the missile actually comes back to the ground, comes back to Earth, the vehicle is essentially able to achieve the so-called hypersonic speed. In this particular case, it actually the vehicle can reach the speed up to 12 times the speed of sound, or Mach 12. So, and then the reason why the vehicle is able to achieve this speed is because of the particular shape of the missile itself. And oftentimes, this hypersonic glide vehicle actually includes very cutting-edge components, and also as guiding systems. And the primary purpose of developing this kind of weapon systems by countries like North Korea is to defeat the missile defense systems. So missile defense systems are very good. We have seen this in action in the Middle East, but then these missile defense systems are customized to fend off attacks using conventional ballistic missiles that has very predictable trajectory, which is oftentimes parabolic. But then with the hypersonic glide vehicles, they don't follow the usual parabolic the trajectory of a conventional ballistic missiles. It can change trajectories, it can change altitude, and also has a very high speed, which makes it very difficult for the missile defense system to intercept. So, and then this is the reason why North Korea, in addition to having developed many different types of ballistic missiles with different ranges and capabilities and payloads, is developing this hypersonic glide vehicles because North Korea wants to defeat the ever-evolving missile defense systems that South Korea, United States, in addition to Japan, are trying to implement in this part of the world.
Right. So alongside its difficulty to intercept and its high speed, let's also talk about the distance. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff says the missile flew about 1,100 kilometers before falling into the East Sea, while Pyongyang says it went 1,500 kilometers. If this was true, it would mark the furthest distance covered by a North Korean hypersonic missile. Dr. Go, what does this signal about its capability, and how much of a big development is it?
So North Koreans, when they announced the quote-unquote success of the latest hypersonic missile launch, they explained that this time around they tested a new component. In this case, they claimed that they are using carbon fiber composite materials. This represents a huge leap in terms of development of this kind of missiles. Carbon fiber components is lighter. It's also more resistant to heat, more durable. So in that sense, it actually represents the holy grail of ballistic missiles. And in addition, North Korea claims that their latest missile system, which is called the Hwasong-16 Na variant, has reached a range of 1,100 kilometers, whereas 1,500 kilometers, whereas the military authorities of South Korea, United States, and Japan, they have a consensus that the North Korean missile didn't reach that distance. In fact, it fell short by 400 kilometers or so, over 1,100 kilometers. So as Mark has pointed out earlier, North Korea has this pattern of exaggerating their technological achievements. But then if you evaluate the North Korean claim, not based on the different distance that the both sides have observed. So if you compare the North Korea's missile test to the previous one, in fact, North Korea made substantial progress in this case. The last time North Korea tested the hypersonic ballistic missile that a very similar shape and system, also technology, it reached the distance of 800 kilometers or so, according to the South Korean and the U.S. military authorities. But then North Korea claimed that, and the last time North Korea's hypersonic missile reached the distance 1,100 kilometers. So just looking at the different metrics, whether you trust the North Korean claims or not, it's clear that North Koreans made substantial progress in terms of range. So independent of what the truth is in this case, in terms of range of this missile system, what it represents is it's a progress. So we don't know whether North Korea has been able to incorporate the cutting-edge technology of using carbon fiber-based composite materials, which likely comes from Russia. Nonetheless, range alone shows that North Korea is making progress in this domain of hypersonic missiles as well.
Right. Now let's circle back to the foreign ministerial meeting. Secretary Blinken warned about North Korea potentially receiving advanced military technologies from Russia. Dr. Go, what kind of technologies was he referring to, and do you think they could accelerate the North's missile and nuclear capabilities more?
Well, absolutely. Secretary Blinken mentioned that according to the intelligence that the United States government has obtained, it's likely that Russia supplied North Korea with military satellite technology. But then what's interesting is that I think that the U.S. government has been very conservative in confirming the technology transfer that might likely has taken place between Moscow and Pyongyang, because a lot of experts, including myself, I think I'm sure Dr. Berry also agrees with this. We have been speculating for a long time that military satellite technology, essentially the spy satellite technology, is the particular type of technology Russia has likely supplied North Korea in exchange for the munitions and the soldiers that North Korea sent to Russia in order to assist Russia in its war against Ukraine. So, but then now Secretary Blinken is essentially confirming what a lot of experts have been suspecting for a long time. This piece of technology clearly helps North Korea in terms of developing its strategic capability. But on the other hand, it's not really about, say, offensive side of North Korea's missile and nuclear program. What I mean by this is developing more reliable or like a bigger rockets or missile systems by North Korea. So this is more of a surveillance technology. So it helps North Korea with strategic capability of observing what the United States and South Korean militaries can do. But on the other hand, he hasn't confirmed one of the worst fears that the experts on North Korea have, which is Russia supplying North Korea with the latest and greatest technology in intercontinental ballistic missiles, which remains to be seen.
Then what about Dr. Berry? How do you think this coordination between Russia and North Korea would influence the regime's military and nuclear strategy moving forward?
Putin wants to keep Kim on a short leash, which is to adhere to the letter of the agreement from June's visit when Putin went to Pyongyang, to give him what he thinks is the letter of the agreement of what Kim asked for, at least as interpreted by Putin. And so I think the space and satellite technology, many analysts have always felt that this was the most likely type of product that Russia would provide. It may not even be the 21st century latest and greatest technology. Some of it may be from the 80s and the 90s. But this is what Putin has chosen to give to Kim in exchange for the supply of weapons that could be used in the Ukraine war, but at the same time not to supply North Korea with any weapons that could be then alleged to have been supplied by Russia to potentially be used against the ROK or Japan. So I think basically he's playing it very, very careful with Kim. Kim will always ask for more, but at some point I think Putin expects Kim to back down and go on to the next thing.
So less destructive weapons we're seeing. But Blinken highlighted that President Putin may be nearing a point where he could tolerate North Korea's nuclear weapons development. Then, Dr. Berry, how would you interpret this potential shift in Russian policy? And could this lead to a deeper alliance between North Korea and Russia?
Putin's already said, actually, in 2024 that when asked, I think, at one of his long press conferences, that North Korea's nukes are for self-defense. I think basically when the North Korean experts committee was disbanded, was not renewed because of Russian and Chinese action at the UN Security Council, that was the occasion when Putin said so. So he's basically saying that, yes, these weapons are considered by Russia to be for self-defense. But in reality, North Korea is knee-deep in assisting Putin with both munitions and troops. And reportedly, according to the New York Times at least, it was North Korea that offered to Putin to send troops. And according to President Zelensky the other day in his one of his 3-hour interviews with a YouTube podcaster, he said 1/3 of North Korean troops have experienced casualties, either dead or injured. So I think Russian DPRK military cooperation will be relatively short-lived, and especially if a ceasefire or some sort of deal is reached in the early months of the Trump administration.
Now, during the meeting, Blinken also stressed that North Korea's provocation highlights the need for strengthened trilateral cooperation with Japan, adding that combined defense postures such as the Nuclear Consultative Group will continue. Dr. Go, how important is the role of the NCG in enhancing deterrence capabilities?
We have to, first of all, differentiate between the trilateral cooperation between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo from the nuclear consultative group, because the latter, the nuclear consultative group, is a bilateral mechanism between Seoul and Washington. Japan is not part of it yet, at least. I think Secretary Blinken, in his last tour of the region before he leaves office, essentially wanted to highlight one of the key essential achievements of the Biden administration when it comes to the Northeast Asia, which is the historical agreement between Seoul, Tokyo, and Washington in Camp David in terms of agreeing to cooperate very closely when it comes to not just about regional security, but also in other domains such as economic security and also as the maritime security in the region. So he wanted to highlight this. And of course, having the three countries together, instead of the United States mediating between Seoul and Tokyo, and Seoul and Tokyo not speaking to each other, having this very close and tight, essentially a bilateral relations between Seoul and Tokyo, it has a huge potential deterrence impact on North Korean behavior. We see a practical, essentially, immediate dividends in the deterrence in the form of better information sharing between Seoul and Tokyo. And this is important because the basic foundation of a very effective missile defense system in the region relies on the sensor integration, meaning radar integration between Seoul and Tokyo, as well as the United States, which makes very difficult for the North Koreans to defeat the missile defense in the region, and it actually benefits everybody here, not just South Korea, Japan, but also the United States, and probably even Taiwan. So also it carries an important deterrence effect on China, also as Russia. China and Russia have been conducting joint air patrols in East Sea, which threatens South Korea and Japan. So I think this is a very important mechanism and clearly has to survive the political turmoil that Seoul is undergoing right now, and then especially also as the change of administration in Washington. So I think Secretary Blinken wanted to highlight this because this is very critical for the continuation of the better security situation in the region. In addition, the nuclear consultative group, this is really about the achievement between the Yoon administration and the Biden administration, especially for Yoon, because this has really strengthened the deterrence against North Korea's nuclear threat. Because unlike previous instances of the United States plan to defend off North Korea's nuclear threat, which wasn't detailed, didn't really carry much of a credibility because there's not much information about it, and then also didn't really South Korea wasn't perceiving the U.S. commitment to defend South Korea against North Korea's nuclear threat credible because of lack of information. But through the Nuclear Consultative Group, or NCG, United States has been able to explain what the United States can do to defend South Korea against North Korea's missile threats through the tabletop exercises, as well as better information sharing and explanation of what the United States will do, as well as having an effective operational plan to fend off North Korea's nuclear threats. So these are all measures to increase credibility and assurance for Seoul, and I think has been very effective. And I think it's very important that the incoming Trump administration continues with this commitment.
Right, so we couldn't stress more the importance of these joint efforts. Now, Blinken's latest visit is seen as a farewell visit before Donald Trump returns to office. Dr. Berry, do you think the so-called ironclad alliance between Seoul and Washington would continue under the new administration, and what could be done to maintain such ties?
I think it's the last time we're going to hear the word ironclad. You heard it from Tony Blinken, and that was it. I think by having acting presidents and a drawn-out, contentious political process, South Korea has put itself at a great disadvantage just days before Trump's second inauguration. And Trump may soon claim that the ROK is playing domestic political games under the protection of U.S. troops on its soil. And Trump, in my view, could say the U.S. is, quote, tired of being taken advantage of, unquote, and threaten a drawdown or total pullout of U.S. troops. Now, considering how bluntly he spoke at his Mar-a-Lago press conference yesterday, which Politico this morning is calling MAGA meets Manifest Destiny, Trump could directly intervene with both acting President Che and the opposition leader or the Speaker of the National Assembly and say, give me the phone, I'm going to call these people, and I'm going to convey what I expect to be done to quickly resolve the situation. I have a right to do so because it's my troops that are based on South Korean soil. So at the same time, to be fair, I've checked all of his Truth Social messages. I have transcripts of his press conference yesterday and other remarks he's given, and I can't find any public reference that Trump has made to South Korea. So I think he's taking a wait-and-see attitude. So in fairness, you know, I'm sticking my neck out, but I feel, particularly after yesterday, quite confident to say that the U.S.-ROK alliance, whatever may happen, will not ever be the same again. A silver lining is that Trump publicly has recognized that South Korea's huge shipbuilding and repair capacity is likely going to be needed by the U.S. Navy as soon as possible because the U.S., Trump says, has lost the capability to build and repair ships like it used to.
All right. Now, Dr. Go, very briefly, do you think these kinds of provocations by North Korea would continue until the Trump inauguration?
Well, Dr. Berry remarked earlier in the beginning of this program that the motivation behind North Korea's latest provocation, the launch of the hypersonic glide vehicle in Hwasong-16 variant, wasn't really driven by the motivation to irritate the United States or warn the incoming Trump administration. It was probably driven by more domestic factor, and I fully agree with that assessment. And I think North Koreans have been testing or carrying out the missile provocations so often with many different types of missiles that in a way it's been normalized in the view of the international community what North Korea does with missile launches. So what North Korea has done and this time doesn't really raise up to the level of precipitating an international crisis. Clearly, we are taking North Korean behavior as their usual behavior now, so it should be normalized. Mm-hmm. So I think this kind of behavior by North Korea will continue, and especially because their behavior is probably driven by the technological objective of incorporating the new technologies that they possibly receive from the Russians. I think that's why North Korea highlighted the use of the composite materials in the latest hypersonic missile test. So I think this kind of test, provocation, low-level, quote-unquote, provocation will continue. But then at the same time, I don't think North Koreans are going to engage in so-called red line provocations such as a nuclear test, because I think North Koreans, in a way, they've been expecting Trump to return to the White House because North Korea wants to engage in dialogue with Trump. And also, as President Trump has made a remark several times, that's also his intention. So I think North Koreans are going to cap their provocation at this level for the foreseeable future.
All right. I'm afraid we'll have to leave our discussion right here. Many thanks for your insights, Dr. Go and Dr. Berry. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Till then, stay informed and engaged.